Sorry, I've been both sick and getting ready, packing for Florida. Stay there for a couple in Fort Myers. Interestingly enough, of course, everybody wants to do glamorous photography, take pictures of hot people, so on and so forth. I've talked about this endlessly. There's actually an enormous amount of money in product photography, both clothing lines, and I don't mean fashion photography. I'm actually talking about just regular clothing lines. Of course, you actually have to hire people, but that cost is offset, and you actually work that into CODB, which is cost of doing business with whatever your client is and the contract that you actually set up for them. But I was rolling through Pinterest, and there are a lot of fascinating pictures there. And I don't want to mention company names, but some of the most abysmal, horrible product photography I've ever seen, and most of you would have heard of these clothing lines. I mean, they're not absolutely huge, but I mean, we're talking about chains of 30 plus stores nationwide or globally. The amazing thing that actually, there's a mosquito in here, the amazing thing that actually offsets the work that these people do is that they're all like natural light photographers. Where fill flash was needed, none was used. Just absolutely horrible. Compositionally dead. I just look at this stuff as like, who did they pay to do this sort of stuff? I don't know what people think of me, but actually I do know. And of course there's a lot of detractors because I come off as a crusty asshole, and I do. I'm a bit arrogant. I'm definitely not narcissistic. Definitely not. I mean, I know I'm a fat, bald, tattooed, circus freak looking sort of person, but I'm hyper-logical. And whenever I do a paid job, I've never made anybody unhappy. The last time I upset somebody, it was a lunatic, and it was, I think, 21 years ago. It was a really long time ago. I always do a great job. I typically average between 2 to 4 jobs a month. Last month was only 2 jobs, so that's not much, but that's still 2 jobs more than the top 3 or 4 other YouTube photography channels who do absolutely no paid photographic gigs at all. The stuff that I do is as boring as watching paint peel. Interior shots for businesses for their websites, corporate junkets, events. Events are actually a lot of fun. Depends on the event, though. Oh my God. Oh my God. Have you ever done an event where everybody's wearing a 3-piece suit and it's about corporate structure filing, and there's some really complicated stuff as far as statistical analysis in corporate hierarchies. Oh my God. Paying gigs are paying gig, though. And those people always pay fast, and they don't complain. That's not to say if you do a crappy job, nobody's going to complain. Of course they are, but hey, at least I'm doing paid gigs. But what surprises me is everybody keeps asking me, where is all this photographic work that you speak of? I actually have had a lot of people that have taken my advice. Don't have to take my word for it. Just test the waters yourself. You'll see that there is an enormous, literally, there's an enormous amount of work out there for people that want to do photography. Paid photography, obviously. I'm not talking about puttering around and take pictures of birds and trees and things. And of course, that's very relaxing and enjoyable. I actually find taking bird photography very relaxing. It's kind of like kicking your heels up in your underwear and turning the air conditioner on, and it's very relaxing doing bird photography, even when it's like 100 degrees outside. Point being, getting back to the topic, is that why don't you people actually look up a product that you're familiar with? What you do is you'll actually cold call these people, okay? Have them send you a few products. Actually do a pitch to them, but not a pitch of BS. Like, listen, the photography you're doing is just, I could do a lot better than that with my, of course you don't really want to say that. You want to say it in a much more professional manner. I could do a much better job than that. Let me do 2 product shots for you, and let's see what you think. No obligation. You either have one of their products already, or you get loaned one. And if this, of course, is clothing, you're going to actually have to hire somebody for that. Of course, not necessarily. I mean, not all clothing actually has to be worn. Countless products. Product photography is fun. I mean, that's really the only photography I know where you can sit in your underwear watching TV and, you know, set up some snoots and some fiber optics, and it's relaxing and it pays well, and it's enjoyable. I can't think of anything more stressful than dealing with people and weddings. And why does everybody keep asking where the jobs are in photography? There's such an enormous amount of work there. Everybody that's taken my advice on this has, you know, reported back to me. Well, I don't know how if all of them reported back to me, but a lot of people were like, "Hey, I took your advice." The last guy told me he's shooting a distillery, a small distillery between here and Louisville. I forget what it was. Was it Buffalo Trace Distillery? Anyway, he's doing whiskey shots and he's doing events that this distillery has. They've always got events to promote their product. And now he's their official photographer. He's like, they pay me really well. I can show up and do it when I want in most cases, unless it's an event where I actually have to. I mean, you get... And here's the other really, really important thing. People think, well, you're going to need to move from job to job to job to job. And that's bullshit. It's like, well, now I got to find another job. I got to cold call person number 2 after job number 1's done. BS. If you get a good corporate client, and there are many, look into this, by the way. Look into some product photographers and ask them, like, hey, there's this bald tattooed guy on YouTube. He said, you know, since you're a professional, well-known product, is this true? He's like, yep, he's exactly true. What you do is you find 1, 2, or 3, depends on the size of the client, and you'll just have 2 or 3 clients, and that'll be it. If the client's big enough, that will be your sole client. But there are several people that do corporate, product photography, which also involves corporate, and since a lot of these corporations have events and junkets, and they actually go to larger events for people in the same sort of product to get together, and they want you to take shots of their booth and to get together, and you know, you end up with free food and free hotel. It's actually quite a lot of fun most of the time. But you'll just have 1, 2, 3, 4 clients. That'll be it. I mean, that'll be a really strong payday for you. You don't have to move on from gig to gig to gig. You do a good job. It's like, hey, you stick around. This is better work than we've ever been getting before. Why aren't people pursuing stuff like that? Is it because you find it boring? What's the reason why you actually haven't engaged into that? Why? I've been hitting up a couple small companies whose products I actually strongly believe in, and I'm going to take a shot of one product when I get back from Florida and send it, because what they're actually doing now is kind of horrendous, and if you actually know the angle that the company wants to play as far as their product, other than just a plain boring shot with a white infinity background or something like that. I mean, depends on what the product is and what it is they want to convey. They're the paying client, and you do what they want you to do. But you might actually offer them ideas, because usually when it comes to corporate, their creativity is extremely low to non-existent. It's like, what do you want the theme to portray? And then of course that lets you choose both the composition, the background, the bokeh, the lighting effects, if any. And there is such an enormous amount of work out there for a eager photographer. It's mind-blowing, and all these people are complaining like you can't make money in photography anymore. Well, if you're talking about taking pictures of hot people and horrible wedding photography, which there's always plenty of that work, but who wants to do it? All the stuff that people, well, I want to travel the world, be a landscape photographer for a magazine. Magazines they're kind of defunct. Doesn't everybody know that? When's the last time you picked up and bought a magazine? Yeah, I want to be a landscape photographer for Condé Nast Traveler magazine. It's like, when's the last time you visited the magazine stand? When is the last time? All magazines always have been vehicles for advertisements. I mean, that is what they are. Instead of shooting for the magazine, why don't you be the photographer that shoots for the people that advertise in the magazine? If you can't work one angle, you could work the other one, and the other one usually pays better, less stressful, less work. Let me repeat that again for people that don't understand this. People want to shoot for a magazine, right? Magazines are dying, but I mean, it doesn't matter if they go all digital. I mean, who gives a damn? The magazines still exist. Magazines are delivery vehicles for advertising. You ever picked up like, just name a magazine. It's like 80% advertisements. Why don't you consider being the photographer for the products that go in the magazine as advertisements? Oh, what a novel idea. Instead of getting your picture in a magazine, how about you go for the job where you're taking the shot of the advertisement that goes in the magazine? Those gigs pay better, they're easier, and they're a lot less stressful. There's not been another single YouTube photography channel that has ever mentioned that. I know that for a fact. Not a single one. It's very important. I've encountered countless people say, oh my god, it would be so cool if I could get my picture in so-and-so magazine. I was like, why don't you work your ass off trying to get into X magazine, whatever the hell it is. And what I'll do is I'll like raise a finger and get a job or two or three, or just one, whatever, taking a picture for the advertisement that goes in that magazine that you want to be in. Did I make that abundantly clear? The stuff is not that complicated, but nobody discusses it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. It's time to start packing for Florida. It's going to be hot and rainy down there. Phew. Mic drop.